Today we'll be exploring Walkabout, a feature-length film which was released across Australian cinemas in 1971. The film was an adaptation of a novel called The Children, written by James Vance Marshall. The film's director, Nicholas Reeg, is English. Although this was the second time he had directed, it was his first independent film which was created in Walkabout was screened at the Cannes Film Festival. Although it was not well received at the box office, it had a lasting impression on Australian directors in the new wave film movement. Walkabout paints a coming-of-age story in the red, desolate and dangerous Australian outback, where two unnamed children are left to their own devices after the unexpected death of their father. The three main actors within Walkabout are Jenny, Luke and David Gilpilil. Walkabout explores the drama genre through presenting a range of unprecedented events. For example, in the opening and closing scenes of the film, tension is depicted through unconventional sound and music, fast-paced editing and montages. When the children are left unattended in the outback, they must learn how to survive with no prior experience. A key scene where this is shown is when the children have been walking continuously without water for days. Reeg shows close-ups of the young boy and teenage girl's sunburnt faces to elicit suspense and concern within viewers. The drama genre was previously the most popular genre in Australia, with 37% of Australian films being made under this section in 2008. The Australian new wave film genre, which surged in popularity across the 1970s, presented a vast and untouched geographic landscape in contrast to the Western world. This film depicts children who are forced to grow up quickly in a foreign environment. Considering the coming-of-age genre, Rogue depicts a romantic relationship between two teenagers who are on the cusp of adulthood. Alongside cultural differences and a barrier of communication, the connection soon fails due to the girl's fear and prejudice. The Australian new wave film genre, which surged in popularity across the 1970s, presented a vast and untouched geographic landscape in contrast to the Western world. The Australian outback became a symbol of danger, adventure and excitement. Mid-shots of wild animals such as the iconic Australian fawny devil, blue-tongue lizard and a goanna walking create an air of mystery and insecurity. Another aspect of this genre is the subversion of white Australian values and modernisation. Walkabout highlights the harmful effect of colonisation on the natural Australian landscape. Walkabout encompasses complex themes. For example, violence, loss and grief are highlighted in the opening of the film, where the children lose their father to suicide. Within a state of trauma, their only coping mechanism is to find their way back home, to civilization and comfort. Across the film, the young girl presents values which are confined to social order, such as wearing her school uniform. Towards the end of the film, the Aboriginal boy undertakes what the young girl describes as a death dance, as he paints himself in cultural markings outside of a deserted farmhouse. He fails to gain her compassion, which results in him taking his own life. Reeg includes diegetic sound to represent a silence and disconnect between white and Indigenous Australians. The theme is the loss of innocence. Jenny Agota's character is aged 13 and David's character aged 16. An unspoken relationship develops between them despite their cultural differences. Reeg highlights this loss of innocence through the children learning from the Aboriginal boy how to live off of the land without Western convenience. For example, when the children discover a waterhole, the boy teaches them how to retrieve water from the ground. Violence is a critical theme which is depicted in several scenes across the film, such as the opening when the young boy holds a toy gun. He does not understand the harm that it can cause. The Aboriginal boy's character hunts wild animals which reflect upon the savage stereotype. Another scene where violence is represented is in the final stages of the film. Poachers hunt down and kill the buffaloes. Reeg depicts the Aboriginal boy lying in a bed of buffalo bones, showing the detrimental effect of civilization on the natural environment. The 1970s was a significant era in Australian politics due to the rise of social movements, including women's rights, the rights of Indigenous Australians, and environmental activism. Gough Whitlam, elected as Australia's Prime Minister in 1972, introduced the Aboriginal Land Rights Act. Walkabout reflects on the importance of reconciliation with First Nations people in Australia and how they are represented in film. Australian nationhood is represented through symbols and iconography. such as the Australian outback and its wildlife. Australian screen culture today is still influenced by the new wave film movement, which places the Australian landscape on international screens.